Hi guys, Brent here, and welcome to another commentary video. Today we're going to be talking about what would be the bottlenecking aspect of the survivor side of things, because we all know that Nurse is infamously the thing that bottlenecks balance on the killer side of things. Obviously, we've seen with Awaken Awareness, recently just got a nerf specifically because of the way Nurse interacts with that perk. So we're seeing that Nurse is quite literally, affecting fundamentally the way that DBD balances the game for everyone. However, I wanted to talk about how Survivor has been dealing with something pretty similar for a very, very long period of time, and that being two things. One being primarily the bully squads, and secondarily being the solo queue experience. And the distance between them is almost the exact same thing, except on the Survivor side of things. So let's go ahead and talk about it. So what do I mean that bully squads are the Nurse of balancing? Bully squads, and I will define this quickly for you. Bully squads, 4-man SWF, on comms, going hard, running meta perks, blasting the killer out of the water, perfect coordination, barely any mistakes. They are the nightmare of killer mains. They are the kind of teams that you don't ever want to run into, and trust me, you don't actually run into them that often, I promise. But even as somebody with only like a 3-man situation like this, like a 3-stack with all meta perks, very, very good coordination, they're on voice comms, can be very, very detrimental to playing the game because they play the game so efficiently, almost supernaturally so, that it seems like unless you want to use a lot of catch-up tactics like camping and tunneling, or you just should have brought a better perk build, that it's kind of like the matches are foregone conclusions, especially with the 4-man example. But as you've probably seen throughout your matches both on Survivor and Killer, this is not a realistic way to measure the game. And bully squads have been the reason a lot of things have been nerfed throughout the history of this game. A good example would be Boil Over. Boil Over used to be a lot stronger. Boil Over used to be have an even higher wiggle rate and also had a higher penalty for dropping off of objects, which allowed the survivors to wiggle off extremely easily. The problem was when they buffed this perk, a lot of bully squads were intentionally stacking on this perk and bringing it in order to make the killer's life as miserable as possible. So they decided to nerf this perk and bring it back down to a level where it was a little bit more manageable, and it's not where a 4-man could bring it and feasibly ruin an entire experience for the killer just by the fact that they all brought this perk and all knew how to use it in 4-man tandem. However, you got to look at the dark side of this, which is that means that people that liked running Boil Over and liked playing mostly solo queue or mostly just in duos now have had something that was fun for them ruined because groups of people, despite how rare they were abusing it and making it to where that the perk was, despite the fact that it on its own was not too terrible, was being manipulated to be extremely terrible by groups of people trying to abuse it and get the most efficiency out of it. And like I said, this isn't incredibly common. You don't run into bully squads that often. You may be running into 2 groups of duos, you may be running into even like a 3-man and a 1-person, but you're not really running into 4-man SWF on comms really that often, realistically. It's not that common. It's just not. But the experiences they create when they do happen are so miserable that it bottlenecks balance because the devs don't want these situations to happen to killers. They don't want these perks being abused in a way that makes the killer experience absolutely miserable. So they end up nerfing things based on what the bully squads are doing. And the problem is that if you're a little guy in solo queue running these perks, you're not going to be able to have as much effectiveness, if any, really, as like a 4-man SWF would. I think another perfect example of this would be like Soul Guard. Soul Guard on its own in solo queue, good luck getting that to even go off. But if you have a bully squad running like For the Peepo, We're Gonna Live Forever, and they're running Soul Guard, suddenly they're getting an obnoxious amount of value out of this perk because they all know each other has it, and they're going to just be picking people up anytime you leave them down for more than half a second, and they're going to have endurance if you try to hit them the moment they get back up. It's one of those things where bully squads make things that initially aren't annoying or frustrating very, very annoying and frustrating, and it puts behavior in a really weird place because do they balance for the bully squads even though they're rare, or do they leave it because most people play solo queue or just with a couple friends? And that back into that, and I've been referencing it throughout this video, is that like solo queue also bottlenecks experience. It really does. Solo queue also bottlenecks the way that they balance the game because solo queue is so far below bully squads. It's like the power disparity between these could not be more vast between a 4-man bully SWF on comms and solo queue. Solo queue, you're lucky to make it out of the game. Unless you're running like all meta perks and trying your heart out, even then, if you run all bully perks, you run all sweat perks and you try your heart out, all it takes is one bad random. Like, think of how many scenarios you've been in where, like, for example, like a Myers, like, you know to hide from Myers when he's at the beginning of the match, so you don't beat his tier 3 super quickly, especially since most of them have Tombstone. So you'll get out of the way. But if you just get one guy who only has like 400 hours and he doesn't know that, and he's a little bit inexperienced against the specific killer, he feeds the Myers and then he tombstones you. Even though you knew how to play well, the solo queue you're playing solo queue, so the teammate that you're playing with didn't have the same level of skill you did. So even though you didn't play wrong, you're being punished by being literally moried out of the game instantly by the tombstone. So naturally, you want to like buff things that would make solo queue a less painful experience. But if you do that, you put that into the hands of the bully man for SWF on comm squads, and it seems like both can't coexist. Like, these are too vastly far away. And I think that's something that I will say to Behavior's credit, they've done a very, very good job on lately with the killer side, is trying to take these like really bottom barrel killers and bring them up to the middle, right? Like, Pig had her traps made more consistent by having a set number of uses. Very, very good. They buffed the Legion to not be as weak as Legion used to be by giving all sorts of things with like the better add-ons, the fifth down if you chain hits, a lot of wonderful stuff. Ghostface got adjusted to be more fair, got some really, really good add-ons. Essentially, Behavior's been doing a good job of trying to like cut out the power disparity between killers, because that makes it better to balance, because you don't have to worry about that. Obviously, Nurse being the outlier that they still need to work on. But Survivor is kind of still in the same place of solo queue is all the way down here. Solo queue is all the way down here. And Bully Squad on SWF on comms is all the way up here. And it makes balancing stuff for Survivor incredibly difficult. And I do think that's why we see so many just useless perks get thrown the Survivor's way, why like you'll have like Wiretap and like Reassurance be like the two, yay, we got good perks, guys, and we'll use Wiretap and Reassurance, but like that's 4 other perks on both of those characters that just kind of go into the giant mound of perks that nobody's going to use and nobody's going to run, because it's like walking on thin ice to develop perks for Survivor, because you don't want a 4-man bully squad on comms to abuse it, but also you don't want to make it so useless that the solo queue person that's already having a bad time can't even use it to help get out of their tricky situation. So TLDR, they probably need to do some things to both of these aspects of the game to try and bring them more in line and power with each other. They probably need to bring solo queue up, maybe bring 4-man SWF on comms down somehow. I don't know how they would do that. But basically try to find a way to make these things more in line with each other from a power perspective, because while we talk a lot about how Nurse bottlenecks the balance for killers, the disparity between 4-man SWF on comms and solo queue basically makes balancing for Survivor a nightmare. So they probably need to address that soon, huh? Yeah. Thank you so much for watching, guys. That's gonna be it for today's video. I appreciate you so much for spending time with me today, but that's gonna be it, unfortunately. But I do upload daily, so I will see you tomorrow. And if I don't, I'll see you when I see you. Goodbye.